There is a vast difference between the smoke of a campfire and the smoke of a dying nation. A campfire promises warmth, food, and shelter. But when a wooden village burns, the sweet, resinous smell of the pine forest is hijacked by the bitter, choking stench of total destruction. On a hill overlooking the blackened ruins of his own territory, Prince Alexander Nevsky sits motionless on his horse. He is breathing in the ash of his people. He is a ruler who has inherited a graveyard. His gaze moves past the smoldering tree line, tracking eastward toward the distant horizon. Out there, beyond the forests, lie the endless alien flatlands of the Asian steppes, the home of his conquerors. A man cannot swing a sword at an empire that stretches to the edge of the world. Military courage offers no solutions when your country is already reduced to embers. The question facing him now is entirely mathematical. How do you govern a ghost town? This manuscript page shares the prosperous, unified figures of Kievan Rus before the fall. Kievan Rus was a massive medieval federation of Slavic territories that commanded immense wealth and terrified its neighbors. It was a golden age of towering architecture and undisputed regional power. Alexander carries the famous title Nevsky because of a bold, impulsive victory at the Neva River during his youth. But charging headlong into a smaller, disorganized enemy with a handful of trusted men is a young man's game. That kind of luck cannot save a shattered federation. The Mongol invasion wiped the board clean, leaving an absolute vacuum of power. The surviving, once proud cities like Vladimir, with their brilliant white stone cathedrals, have been reduced to humiliated tributary outposts. A tributary is a subordinate state forced to pay regular taxes and resources to a conqueror to avoid further destruction. Alexander knows that playing the traditional hero against the sheer, overwhelming mass of the horde is a death sentence. To ensure his bloodline survives the century, the warrior has to die, and a calculating, ruthless politician must take his place. This map shows the geographic trap Alexander inherited. Rus is caught in a vice between Western Catholics and the Mongol horde. Accepting the Catholic alliance means accepting their knights, castles, and the systematic erasure of the Russian Orthodox religion. The Mongols offer a different kind of nightmare. They demand crippling financial tribute and regular shipments of conscripted blood for their foreign wars. But they are entirely indifferent to the Russian soul. They do not care about the glittering golden mosaics or the Orthodox frescoes in the cathedrals. Alexander makes his choice. He rejects the Pope's alliance. He turns his back on Europe and submits to Batu Khan in the east. This map traces the reality of that submission. It required incredibly long, vulnerable journeys, thousands of miles into the steppe to kneel at Sarai. Sarai was the Golden Horde's sprawling administrative capital, a terrifying center of power where a wrong word meant instant execution. The logic is cold but flawless. Physical and financial subjugation by the Mongols is a temporary physical price. He trades his silver and his pride to protect the permanent cultural identity of his people from being absorbed by the West. But buying protection from the horde means Alexander has to become their enforcer. To keep the Mongol armies from returning to burn what is left, he must act as the absolute authority over his own people. The cost is steep, and it starts at home. When the fiercely independent city of Novgorod refuses to submit to the Mongol census, a formal count of the population used to calculate exact tax burdens, Alexander marches on them. He brutally suppresses the rebellion, crushing the resistance led by his own son. Soon after, the horde installs the Baskoks. These are foreign Muslim tax collectors embedded directly into Russian cities to extract wealth. Almost immediately, violent uprisings detonate across Rostov and Yaroslav. The Russian citizens hunt down the Baskoks and slaughter them in the streets. Historical evidence points to a terrifying political reality. Alexander likely permitted, or even secretly orchestrated, these coordinated assassinations himself. It is a massive gamble. He is inviting the Khan's total wrath. He doesn't order the hits to win freedom. He does it to eliminate the middleman. By removing the horde's collectors, he proves to the Khan that only he, Alexander, can reliably extract the tribute. He centralizes the extortion racket into his own hands. He intentionally breaks the spirit of his own people. He stains his hands with Russian blood specifically, so the Mongols have no mathematical reason to return and do it themselves. Back on the smoky hill, the grim reality of this governance plays out. A terrified Russian peasant, fleeing his destroyed village, bursts from the tree line, desperately trying to catch a runaway horse, his only possession. Alexander's heavily armed guards immediately intercept the man. By the brutal laws of a conquered land, the peasant is trespassing on a military position, and the horse is now the property of the prince. The guards prepare to punish him. Alexander does not draw his sword. He doesn't even speak. With a slight, almost imperceptible nod of his head, he orders his guards to hand the reins back to the peasant. The man scrambles onto the horse and vanishes back into the forest. It is a microscopic act of mercy, but it reveals his entire philosophy of rule. Pointless cruelty inside his own borders is a waste of resources. The land is ruined, the people are broken, but they are his to preserve, however marginally. History operates like a mighty river. It is an unstoppable natural force, entirely indifferent to the people caught in its current. You cannot fight it, but if you place a single heavy stone in the right spot, you can slightly divert the flow of water. Alexander's agonizing compromises, kneeling in the dirt at Sarai, crushing his own son's rebellion, monopolizing the tribute, were the stones. He used them to divert political power away from the dead, burned-out city of Kiev. That diversion flowed east, toward the banks of the Volga. By keeping the Mongols satisfied with silver instead of slaughter, he secured the geography for his descendants, laying the exact territorial foundation for the future rise of Moscow. Centuries later, the church would sanitize his reign. They scrubbed the blood from his hands and elevated him to a spotless, holy figure. They preferred the myth of the righteous warrior to the reality of the ruthless tax collector. But Alexander Nevsky bought the survival of the Russian state by deliberately trading away his own honor. He proved that when a nation is reduced to ash, it is rarely saved by pure, unblemished heroes. It is saved by those willing to endure the bloody math of statecraft.